Yeah.
It smelled like we
Yeah,
were under the
I've
bridge
sent
or
it to
something.
everyone else
So,
though.
Okay.
It was unbearable.
yeah.
And we're also live now, Mr. Mac.
Okay.
So just
Great.
let the music play, and then whenever
Yep.
you're ready to go, just go.
Here we go. I'm Al Mcfarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al Mcfarlane. Glad to be here and glad to have you along. I've got in my Zoom call my friend and actually my cousin, Kenya McKnight, an entrepreneur, an organizer. I call her a force of nature. And Kenya, good afternoon. How you doing, cousin?
I'm good. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm well, I'm well, I'm well. So I invited you on to talk about something that you are doing, one of the many things you're doing that is so significant, so timely, and so appropriate. You have a project that I want you to describe. It's called the Black Women's Wealth Alliance. That's the general business umbrella that you're working out of to create opportunity for the Black community, focusing on initiatives led by, executed by Black women. And one of the things that you're doing that's so timely right now is a project that you call the what's the right name for it?
B Marketplace.
B Marketplace, right. And I got an image up on my screen here to remind me of the details of that. But I wanted you on today to talk about that, to talk about the Black Women's Wealth Alliance and about the B Marketplace. All of that in the context of Kamala Harris being selected and elected the vice president-elect for our country, and what that foretells or portends for the whole notion of economic empowerment, cultural empowerment, freedom for Black people in general, and leadership and opportunity for Black women. How do we sort of fully unleash all of the assets we have in Black men and Black women to bring forth a new reality that supports our shared humanity, dignity for our people and therefore for the rest of the world. That's a lot to put on you, cousin, but I know you're ready for it. So jump in this conversation.
I think, the movement has started years ago. I mean, it's always been a part of who we are as a fabric, as a people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Commitment and sacrifice and, endurance that Black women have, just put out here, to help push us forward. Of course, we know that's in partnership with Black men, but right now we're talking about the contributions and the role, responsibility, and the opportunity that Black women are pushing forward in this country, again, historically, but currently now. And I think Kamala Harris, certainly represents, a nice portion of that picture. And so for me, I think, as we know it today, and it has been for the last maybe perhaps 5 years now, Black women have been leading new business startups across the United States and generating the highest level of entrepreneurial energy out here. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One is part of who we are as a people, and two, it's about also trying to build and diversify income streams because of the challenges, with economics, poverty and just struggle and the lack of assets that we have and the growing responsibilities we have as a family. And knowing that Black women carry, particularly in Minnesota, despite our marital status, nearly 80% of us are the head of our households or the primary breadwinners of our households, I should say. And that number does go down when you look at it nationally, but it's still, out of all of the women in the US, Black women make up the highest percentage of women who have a higher percentage of being the primary breadwinners of their household, which in my opinion is not a badge of honor, it's a badge of responsibility. So entrepreneurship makes sense as we need to find ways to take care of ourselves and our families. And so some other things you mentioned kind of come back to me so I can.
Sure. No. Well, let's just go back and forth and flow with a conversation. What we do here every week, Kenya, is just engage our guests on ideas that they think about and that we think about, and we let the conversation flow as it will. And I tell my listeners here, this is unscripted. It's totally just two people having a private conversation that we're sharing with the 100,000 listeners that we have right now on KFAI, and also with the world that's connecting with us through YouTube and Facebook Live. So that's how this thing is working. And so, cousin, generally, you talked about the fact that this responsibility, the fact that 80% in Minnesota of Black households are ones that in which women are the primary breadwinner. That's a huge issue. And you say it's not a badge of honor, but it's an awesome responsibility. And I'm suggesting, I think I hear you saying that it's a responsibility that Black women are not shirking from. They're rising to the challenge and they're taking it on because it's existential. It's life and death for our community, for their families, et cetera. And so go more deeply on that obligation. How come, we don't have, I don't even want to focus on the fact that maybe Black men are not being able to or doing their share, but just how awesome it is that Black women can move and do move forward to ensure the protection and vitality of our families and our community.
Yeah. And certainly we know that there are some systemic and historical challenges placed there. And some of it isn't just about what Black men aren't doing. Some of it has a lot to do with our marital status, the fact that, most of us are not married, which means that, even though the father may be contributing to the household, but because you're not married, you're not considered the head of the household or the primary breadwinner. And so these, data works so funny. So there's a lot of things that contribute to what that number is. And there's certainly, we have to account for the prison, imprisoned population. There are more Black women, Black females, I should say. We're the largest portion of the Black community. So we're larger in number one. And two, we control nearly 60% of the Black dollar. So we make up, so we are the financial influencers. Whether we're making any money or not, we spend it. We influence how it goes. And I think what is true for us, what we understand is that in that, On an average, a single Black woman without children has a net worth of $0 to $100, and a single Black woman with children has a net worth of $0 to $50. So essentially that means we don't have assets. And so the way we're spending our money, the way we're investing our money isn't really moving us towards a place of building generational wealth where we actually have assets that we own and that can, live through generations of our family. So Black men actually do have more assets than Black women. The things that they do spend their money on has a monetary value that whether it grows or decline, they have that. But we influence the money. So I think what also partially makes up the entrepreneurial energy of Black women is also we respond to the needs of our community, because the majority of the businesses we have are about services to our community, right? And so we're doing it through entrepreneurial means where, the things that we know need to be there may not exist in the existing structures of government or nonprofit. So we're creating our own pathway. So there's a lot of innovation that makes up that entrepreneurial number as well. But again, the marital status has a lot to do with the how we see and what we recognize as households.
Great. I'm Al Mcfarlane. This is Conversations with Al Mcfarlane. Glad to have you along. My guest you've been listening to is my cousin, Kenya McKnight, cousin on my mother's side. And guess what? We're also joined, Kenya, by a cousin on my father's side. You all haven't met before, but let me introduce you for the first time. This is Sharon June McFarlane, who's joining the call from London, England. And so she's a first cousin from my father's side of the family, Jamaican Caribbean, but she is actually London born. Sharon June, how you doing, cousin?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me. I'm so sorry I'm slightly late, but I'm here now.
Well, not a problem. The show we did last week was so well received. I wanted to reach out back to you to say, let's keep this conversation going. And what I love about it is this is particularly unique because it's three cousins on the phone. This is all about our family,
Family.
and Kenya talked about this question of generational wealth. And so I'm going to ask Kenya a couple more questions, but jump in where you want to. And Kenya, let's have a conversation among cousins that just found each other again. I can tell you this, Sharon, when I was doing one of the genealogy pages, and I've known Kenya a long time, first of all.
Right.
Kenya's been a feisty, fierce fighter from day one. And when I first met her, she had declared that she was going to be running for the state legislature. And she actually asked me to introduce her, to kind of nominate her. And I said, sure, I'll do that, right? And I did that for the nominating convention in our neighborhood.
Right.
And so sometime later, I was on one of the Sykes family pages. My mom's name is Sykes.
Yes.
And I see Kenya McKnight. So I call her and say, Kenya, what you doing on my family page, right?
Yeah.
So she said, that's my family. And so we discovered we're part of a huge family network. That's such a wonderful thing.
Fantastic.
And so I proudly introduce her as my cousin. She has the fire.
Wonderful.
That's typical of our family. She's committed and she is fearless. So Kenya, let me go back to you, about Black women. So the mission and vision, explain to our listeners and our viewers the role, mission, and vision of the Black Women's Wealth Alliance.
Sure. So, pardon me. So our goal is to improve the economic stability and prosperity of what we identify as historical Black women who have been in the lands of the United States, the North America for hundreds of years. Our way to carve out the racial equity that we see as necessary, that it upholds, what our journey, our story has been, which is different, right?
Yes.
From the sisters across the diaspora, but it's not exclusive of them in a sense that we recognize that we have a shared journey and connection and we're family.
Absolutely.
But what our experience has been and is on this land, we specify in our work as historical Black women. Now, we do rock with women across the diaspora. They participate, in our education, in our programming, but we definitely only speak Ebonics and speak from and work from the cultural lens of historical Black experience in the United States. Some areas of work that we focus on is what we call wealth literacy. We think that's very important. And financial literacy is a part of the bigger game of wealth. So we have a training program called Queenomics that is dedicated to the financial character, experience, and reality of not only Black people, but specifically historical Black women and how money. We also focus on business leadership and strategy. It isn't our goal to really, teach you how to do a business plan and start your business up, but we want to teach you how to navigate and move in the game and how to increase your social capital and net worth as an entrepreneur. So that is what we do through a new program we created called Resist and Thrive 2035. It's a fellowship program committed to 750 Black women entrepreneurs to help them scale up over a 12-month period and investing $50,000 into them. So we'll work with 50 a year to achieve that goal over 15 years.
Yes.
Which we need about $37.8 million to do it, which we're, going to actively work hard. We just will be launching our new social impact investing fund. Thank you to the Bush Foundation for helping us get started with that as our way to directly finance Black women entrepreneurs. Lastly, or the third thing is professional development. There is a critical skill gap that we have in not only our knowledge and relationships, but technical skills, straight of communication and technology that we focus on through our program called Miss CEO, where it is an exchange of Black women CEOs teaching other Black women, sharing jewels of navigation and executive leadership and tactics that they can use to increase their value proposition, which we think is important. It's all about, how you improve yourself, but most of all, how you leave things better than you found them to help position you forward for better opportunity. So that's our focus on that. And the last thing is we have a grant fund called the Asset Wealth Fund. And that fund is dedicated to investing in the capacity of Black women to be successful and in their goals to achieve generational wealth. And in that, we've so far distributed out, or granted out, I should say, $500,000 over the past 3.5 years to hundreds of Black women in the areas of education for students and those who are seeking, just training and education for them. Business owners from every startup to mid, and finally to folks who are just workers, because we serve all three populations who, need help with either transportation or different things to help them maintain their employment.
Right. Okay, that's good. Very impressive. Yeah. So
It's
a national organization, or you focusing on Minneapolis, your local area, in terms of reaching out to women?
We by default became national this year. It is our goal to do for sure, as we are a for-profit company, so we're a public benefit corporation. I'm the owner of the company. But we certainly have had students from Illinois, from DC, from Ohio, and from Detroit. So national this year.
Yeah, okay, that's very impressive. Yes, great.
With the goal of being international.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah,
we have the connections,
Yeah.
Let me ask you to talk for a second about the upcoming bee market. I'm going to put a screen up. It's a little bit dated, but the basic image and idea are in the screen for those who are watching the program on YouTube. And for those who are listening on KFAI, we'll describe what we're looking at. And it's an image of the bee market event that's coming up. Talk about that, if you would, Kenya McKnight.
Yeah, the bee marketplace. So this is something we thought about for a while, but we are just piloting it now. There are a plethora of Black women entrepreneurs out here, and Black entrepreneurs themselves are doing a wonderful job at out here just doing so many creative things that we certainly support. Our way to contribute to the, energy of Black entrepreneurship was to create the bee marketplace, where we would take up to 30 Black women entrepreneurs and promote them through our networks over 30 days in other networks. And we're happy to have the partnership with you. And I hope you can talk a little bit about the role of Insight News. So the bee marketplace is closed. We have accepted actually 36 applicants. It was just hard to say no to folks because of the environment we're in, where Black businesses under COVID and the civil uprisings have been hit the hardest. And as well as Black workers, at least nearly half of the jobs that we have been, folks have been laid off. So because of that, we are also seeing an insurge of businesses starting up from that population of unemployed folks or laid off, furloughed people. So our way of trying to respond to that, outside of the many grants that we've issued for support, is to create this marketplace where we would promote and help grow their revenue streams over a 30-day period. As part of our contribution, we will provide them with back-end office support, where we're providing them with updated social media profiles or building those for those who don't have it. We're issuing grants to them to support their capacity to buy inventory. We're helping them administratively set up their professional emails and, communication systems. And we are assisting them with, imaging, taking, photos of their products and pricing and descriptions. And we're building a website that all of this will be hosted on as a marketplace. And our goal is to really go beyond the 30 days, but that's where we'll start hardcore and promoting it through our networks and all the folks who are reaching out, trying to support us. Well, rather than just giving resources directly to us, we want to create ways for them to support Black women directly through their entrepreneurial efforts.
And so what we have done, June, is approached Kenya and her team to say that Insight News supports this vision, supports the work, and we've made available a grant of about $50,000 of pro bono advertising to support the cohort of 36 women. What does that mean? It means that at the last of November and through the month of December, we'll be running full page ads that showcase and highlight those entrepreneurs and bring our readers, our viewers, our listeners into an awareness that hopefully can support these women entrepreneurs, these businesses who are under the Black Women's Wealth Alliance umbrella. Why do we do that? Well, for a variety of reasons. One is that we need to change the public mind, change the mind of our community about the efficacy of our people doing business with our people. The challenge and the problem is that we've been so inundated with negative imaging about us, and we've been crippled. The effort was to cripple us. I'm not going to say that we've been crippled because we are resilient and we overcome and we are powerful, but the effort to diminish and dampen our confidence and our recognition of the huge contributions we make day by day, neighborhood by neighborhood, community by community, church by church, locally, nationally, globally. The information about our power and our prowess has been systemically suppressed. Our mission as a communications vehicle and company is to clear some of the obstacles, the information obstacles, and present the reality of our capability to us and to the world, to deny and destroy the negative imagery that is incessant and oppressive. That's the fight. And so in the spirit of Bob Marley, right, we come to the marketplace saying that our mission is to destroy white supremacist thought, impact on our people. And we also believe that it has an equally negative impact on those who hold supremacy dear, because it limits them in their capacity to discover what it means to be their best selves, their best fully formed human beings. So that's an institutional strategy for us. And in that regard, we support and elevate this vision, this work of Black women entrepreneurs pulled together by cousin Kenya McKnight and the Black Women's Wealth Alliance. So I wanted to give you a chance, Sharon, June Mcfarlane from London, to react to what you've heard so far, but also when you and I talk on the phone, we talk about the world of politics, the world of business, and we talked last about the presidential election. So I'm interested in sharing again your thoughts on where and how it looks right now to Black people around the world, in your case in London, about what's unfolding in the United States of America and how you assess the rollout and the resistance to the Biden-Harris presidency, vice presidency. So what are your thoughts, Sharon?
Well, it's quite interesting. I mean, I loved what Kenya was saying about the Black women and business and what you're trying to do over there. It's a similar story here, and I know I've got some contacts about people again trying to help other Black women and promote Black business. So it's a familiar story. But getting back to talk about the politics now, because I'm very interested in the politics of the day, is that we are still in London, or in England, I should say, appalled, apprehensive, slightly concerned about the current incumbent of 1600 Pennsylvania. We still don't understand why Trump is there, why he hasn't conceded yet. But a couple of interesting things have happened since we last spoke, Al. Number one, racism is it's here, just like it is in the States. And shortly, I think last week after we spoke, a member of the House of Lords, which is like equivalent, I think, to your Senate, the upper house in our parliament, on some tweet which was celebrating the fact that Biden and Harris had won or were going to be elected, said if Biden passes over, because I think there is some concerns about his age, is that, the Indian will take over. So that's been, of course, a real Twitter storm. That's one thing. Then over the last, again, since we spoke, there were two things. You referred to her as an African-American, as I have. We know her mother is Southeast Asian. Now, two things have happened, which I think is really interesting. I was looking on the YouTube a couple of days ago, and there's a young British woman of Southeast Asian background, who was saying that her relatives were surprised that Kamala, I thought the name would have given her a clue, was that she had that heritage. So they were surprised, and they were also questioning why that part of her heritage seems to be subservient to the African-American part. Everyone sees, sometimes you hear people say African-American, actually, in fact, her father's from Jamaica, African-American and Southeast Asian or an Indian. But apparently in the Indian community, they didn't know it as much as we do in the Black community. So that was interesting. And what this woman was trying to talk about the positivity of it. It turns out that in fact she's got a white partner, but she's concerned about the fact that there's be more promotion of Kamala's Black past background than the Asian part. Then on the BBC on Sunday, they have 3 people in industry, commerce, etc., who review the Sunday papers. And as this week, Sunday gone, there was an Asian guy, Southeast Asian, who said that he hoped that the Biden-Harris foreign policy would focus, mainly because of Kamala's Southeast Asian heritage, would focus on the ongoing dispute that there is between India and Pakistan, which, as you know, is a result of the British colonialism. And they still, it meant a partition of the subcontinent, millions being displaced, etc. And there's still antipathy from the two countries towards each other, and they share a border. And it was interesting that, I suppose, that we don't really know, I don't know what Southeast Asian communities talks about in itself, that they are claiming Kamala as much as we are. And I said to you that I don't know if Jamaicans are. And I also saw something about clothes and the fact she wears suits and what suits, she likes suits, etc., etc. So she not just has the responsibility of being the most senior Black female politician in the history of anywhere. She's also got the gender aspect to contend with, the expectations of the Southeast Asian continent and diaspora, as well as the Black African and American community and diaspora. She's got 3 levels of responsibility as well as doing her day job. Whereas Biden, we know that he's going to be leader of the free world. We know that he's got Irish ancestry. So he's very concerned about the Northern Irish border, which affects us in Britain with our trade negotiations with the EU and Britain and America. But it just struck me, wherever you are in the world, if you're Black or brown woman, you have so many things so you're responsible to so many different groups. And I thought that was really interesting. She hasn't even taken, it's not even January the 20th yet, and we're really talking about her fashion, her dual heritage, etc., etc. And that's just struck home to me.
Amazing, amazing.
It's amazing.
Kenya, what when you were watching, as you and I watched here in Minnesota, the election, what thoughts did you have? And I know that you are keenly political. As I mentioned, you were actually have been a candidate for elective office in Minnesota. So, and you've been an outspoken organizer, politician. What were your impressions and thoughts as you watched the election unfold?
We're always hard on each other. So I wanted her to play the game a little differently and recognize that Mike Pence is not Trump. So a little critical of her, but I also had to give her a little grace because it was her first time being on that large of a platform. And I think that, whenever there is a blended of identities such as hers, there's always a struggle with the balance of what someone identifies as being, real or not, this or that. But I also like to remind us that Jamaicans are also a part of the African American, as in the United States was also part of the Caribbeans in terms of just that whole geographical space. So we actually are people, as we Nigerians are too, and it's really interesting how we're always subjugating our identity. So what we call historical Black does make up the Haitians and whole Caribbean diaspora of Black folks. Some from the West Africans, areas, but so I think and what we call Native Americans here. So I think we just need to be clear that, we have a very diverse combination of our identity of what we call African American and historic to this land, as well as their experience was very similar and in many ways the same. So say that first to go ahead and solidify the fact that she is an African American in part from her father's makeup.
That's right.
That part, but the other, and we all struggled with it. Even I had to remind myself of that very thing, because it's, we always, look at what white folks are comfortable with and who and what they promote, right? Why not a Stacey Abrams, right? Who's, that she's definitely bona fide in what we would consider to be Black from these lands. And so it's always about that appeal of what white folks, prefer.
Yes.
And so it gets scrutinized through that lens first.
Yes.
That's who she is. I thought to myself that, well, if this is what we have to work with, because, I was definitely conscious of her record towards Black men. So of course, I, question was what was her relationship with her father, with Black men the way she did. And
so hold on. Unpack that a little bit. So tell me what you're talking about, Kenya.
She's just.
No, I'm not gonna let that fly over. You got to break it down for me. I'm the guy. I'm the guy on call. Break it down for me.
But we all have baggage that we carry, and I don't know necessarily what her relationship was with her father, but according to her record, she's pretty hardcore with Black men, and so that's. You talk about white supremacy.
And by that you mean her legal work. Is that what you mean, or you mean something differently?
Yes, thank you very much. To clarify, I don't know what her personal relationship is with brothers. I'm pretty sure she's had some experiences, but we're talking about her legal record of prosecuting Black men as her role as a prosecutor. She, had very tough convictions, a lot of convictions, and long sentencing of Black men, and she has a reputation for that. In fact, a lot of criticism of that, and so as a Black woman, of a Black who has a Black father, brothers, and some who are in prison, and knowing that it's a systemic issue here, I'm certainly considerate of that. And you always have to ask the question: is that because her mama's not Black, right? That she would be less sensitive to what that means to us, or what is her relationship with Black men or her father that has driven sort of a harsh, approach to Black men. And so, and it could have been none of those things, but I'm saying that these are thoughts that definitely surfaced in my mind about, well, what does that mean with her being in this role? Black men receive justice, in her lens, or would she, enact the same type of harsh legal punishments on them from a platform now? Because what she thinks she understands about who we are and what their punishment or how they should be managed through the lens of justice. And so that's definitely continues to be something that we should always keep at the front of our minds and not allow, because we all know, we all say all skin folks ain't kin folks, right? So we gotta, not because of the wonderful accomplishment that we also appreciate or respect and uphold her for being the first, not only woman but Black woman as a vice president. That is historic. It's a double-edged sword, but it's just to say, be mindful. But these are the thoughts that I had, Mr.
I approach this, Kenya and June, from this perspective. Not only do I support the stability and the centeredness of the Biden candidacy, though I support and I lean towards progressive politics that Bernie and company represented, I am equally skeptical of white progressives as I am of white conservatives and the white middle of the road, because I think the question of race still applies. And that my sense and my analysis of the vision and work of the progressive community still holds this paternalistic posture, their sense that that even though they're progressive and want things like equality and freedom and opportunity, it should be defined by them, emanate from them, and that all of us should be happy that these white people are now woke, and we should follow them in their wokeness. I object to that. And so I'm not committed to progressives or conservatives or moderates who believe that they have the right and the authority to dictate the terms of what the future will be. I believe that we have to approach all of it with a lens that reflects our sense of our own history and our sense of what the future can be, determine that we are co-creators of the future. And that's what equity means. That and it actually means that the decisions you think you're going to make are null and void if I'm not at the table. We have to develop that kind of strength and certitude in our movement and in our voicing of priority, policy, of the narratives we create that put us front and center in the arena of decision making. Now, Sharon, let me ask you, Kenya brought up an important question about this whole notion of Black men being the target of the criminal justice system, particularly in California and under the watch of Kamala Harris as the state's attorney general. What is the general sense? And obviously, criminal justice and imprisonment is a big issue in this country for Black people. What's the story in England, in London?
She's surprised if I said it's exactly the same.
Tell me about it. We haven't discussed it here, but is the
just the same
as the okay? Talk about that.
Just the same. They are more. I can't remember exact statistics, but they're 4 times or 5 times more likely to be stopped. They call it stop and search, the such laws. They're 4 and 5 times more likely to be stopped and charged by the police, especially in London. They're 4 to 5 times, 3 times more likely to receive longer, harsher sentences than their white counterpart for the same crime. They're targeted. Don't do well at school. The same story. They'd be twins, so it's no different here. Just one thing I wanted just to clarify, that when I said that, the Southeast Asians are claiming her, as I said to Al last week, Kenya, every Black woman I know, whether Jamaican, Caribbean, African, from Africa, everyone is claiming, everyone is happy. She doesn't know that we know her, but we're rooting for her. I suppose what I was surprised that at the same time, the Southeast Asians are saying, what about that aspect of her heritage? So they see something they want a claim as well, even with regards to foreign policy. But getting back to Black people, our experiences are very similar, I would say, very similar in terms of, education, opportunities, and the Black male being targeted, adversely targeted in terms of police, crime, and longer jail sentences. It's interesting.
I'm Al Mcfarlane. This is Conversations with Al Mcfarlane. My guests are both relatives of mine, cousins. One here in Minnesota, Kenya McKnight, the CEO, leader of the Black Women's Wealth Alliance, and one Sharon June McFarlane, joining us from London. This is our second webcast podcast. We're doing the Conversations with Al Mcfarlane on YouTube, being streamed also to Facebook, but live here on KFAI. And simply a pleasure for us to connect because Kenya and Sharon have not met before. So this is a family meeting. Sharon, let me ask you to take a minute to talk about you and how we are related. And, you have retired from a career in the university in HR personnel. Talk about, where you are and where you've come from and our connection.
Well, our connection is that we are the children of two brothers. In fact, it's your father who told me when I first met you in 1984, young mid to late 20s. I went to see you meet my Mcfarlane cousins in Minneapolis and Kansas, the Midwest of America. And I remember saying to your father, my uncle Alvin, why is it that all you lot are over there, i.e. my father's first 5 elder siblings, and we are in London? So your father tells me the story, and it's with our Aunt Gloria in her kitchen. So I remember it very clearly. The fact is that our grandparents, when they got married, they spent the first 10 years of their family life in Cuba. And every 2 years they had a baby. So when it came to 10 years, after 10 years of working in Cuba, this is pre-Castro, obviously, but I think Batista was in power, and Cuba was a playground to America. Mm-hmm. So they went to work there, and they raised their 5 children there. And then they returned to Jamaica, which at that time was still a colony of Britain. So when they returned to Jamaica, my father was born. Anyway, when my aunts and uncles, it's time for them to grow up and find work, it was easier for them to enter the States as Cuban-born citizens. But my father would have a more difficult time because he was born in an English colony, Jamaica. So it's easier for him to come to live in England, and therefore you had that divide. 6 brothers and sisters. The 5 eldest go to America, meet African American. They went as young people, so they married over there, American, men and women. And my father, as the youngest of that group of 6 siblings, he came to England, and that's where you had the split. So all my first cousins are in the USA, in the Midwest, and all over America. And I've got 1 brother and 2 sisters, and we were born in London, England, and that's where you had that divide. So that's how we are. I've had a long career working in local government. I've always been politically active in feminist groups, local groups, a member of the Labour Party, and I ended up in human resources. Got a degree in human resources, employment law, and I became head of HR at Lewisham College. It was a further education college until I retired 3 years ago. And that's it.
Oh, that's a great story. Thank you. So can you now
about immigration, because that's interesting how because of that you can end up all over the world. So I'm just glad that this cousin of ours who went to Jamaica on holiday, and I was very friendly with her. She's our father's first cousin, Tensi, and she went to Jamaica, and I was always friendly with her. And I came to see her, and she said to me, "Oh, I met your Aunt Gloria, in Kingston." And she said to me, "Do you ever see Roy's children, i.e. myself, my siblings?" And she said, "Yes." And the next year we came to the States.
Cool,
so yeah, lovely family story.
Kenya, any questions about your cousin in London?
Well, there's a place. When can I come visit? Like
whenever
we under COVID, but
whenever this COVID business is over. Where are you? Are you in Minneapolis as well? You're near Al.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I've been there several times. Yeah, it's lovely.
So talk about the Sykes family, Kenya, if you got a minute to just share how we're connected.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're originally, as far back dated that I understand, from Columbus, Mississippi. And we have a strong Native heritage in our family. So we are Choctaw, Black, Cherokee, Native American, Black natives.
Yes.
Part of our heritage. And so we can go back about 6 generations. I know Al has done some of his, lineage tests. We are pretty large family. A lot of us are double related. Like my great grandparents. So how we're related is through my great grandmother, Memphis Tucker, well, the Jones and Ellis before, which is, I have about 5 different groups of family. And Al is related, we're related on the side of the Jones, Syke, and Ellis. And is that just the Jones, Syke, and Ellis? Okay.
I think so.
Which in that line of family, my great grandmother would be a Jones. Her mother, actually, her mother's name was Beatrice Jones, and so her name changed. My great grandmother's name is Memphis Tucker, and so her name became Tucker from marriage, but she's originally a Jones. So that is our bloodline connection. They are from Columbus, Mississippi. They moved to Tennessee. And then they moved to a small place called Kankakee, Illinois, where then a lot of the Sykes, Ellis, and Jones congregated in that region as folks fleeing from the South, as part of that
Great
migration.
So our family came in on the second wave of that. And, a lot of us settled in small towns instead of the big city of Chicago, where most. So Kankakee is one of those small towns, and we make up at one point nearly half of the city. So that's how large our family is. And like I have like 57 first cousins. And so that's very typical in our family. We're very, very small Southern based people. A lot of cornfields, in Kankakee. I grew up watching movies and TVs in the cornfields. So, good Southern people who work railroads. Very hardworking. My great grandmother was the neighborhood candy store lady. And so she made her own ice cream, hoghead, all those good old Southern things, and made all of us work jobs in her candy store and paper routes and in her garden. So that's sort of the approach, and Pam and all the other sites. So we got together often, annually, for family reunions and visit. And we just had to know who our family was. And we're always very close knit. And so I then later moved here with my mother and other 4 siblings. And so that kind of, disconnected us from the larger system, but they still congregate. We have 2 family reunions a year.
Fantastic.
Both sides of the same family. That is, I think the last thing is that one of our cousins, Pam Sykes, has done probably the most extensive research in our family history and has made it back to the plantation that our family grew up on, which we had a family reunion at in about 2012, as part of our, understanding our roots and heritage. And so, so that is our family across the U.S. But still concentrated in the South and Midwest.
Right. Okay.
So my connection there is through Alan Sykes, is my mother's father. Alan Sykes, I'm told, when he came from eastern Mississippi to the west to the Delta, where my grandmother's family, I think, was rooted in sunflower, which is called the Delta, right? And the story I heard is that, so my great grandmother was Lizzie Harrison. Her husband was Allie Harrison. And Alan Sykes was maybe 20 to 30 years older than my grandmother when he married her. He was like, that this was probably his second family.
Right.
Could have been his third. The understanding I have, it could be wrong, Kenya, is that there were men, like work parties that moved across the state and across the South, and they created families in different places, right? So the family that Alan Sykes had with my grandmother wasn't the first family he had. So that part was probably part of those families in Columbus. And I'm told by one of our cousins that if you go across the state of Mississippi from east to west, every 20, 30 miles, you see communities that were created by Sykes men and women in the community, because the Sykes men were itinerant workers, sharecroppers who worked for a season and then moved on, or maybe they worked for seasons and settled and moved on. So that's a way you have a lot of people populated and people that are related. And as you mentioned, Kenya, people that are double related because they've got relationships on both sides of their family. Well, the story I heard was that when Alan Sykes came through Sunflower, or maybe a place called Itabena, Mississippi, stopping at the Harrison house, looked at my grandmother. We call her name was Martha Harrison. We call her Big Mama. But he told her dad and mom, that one over there, save her for me. I'm coming back. and he came back, and he, in effect, I don't know if the right word for it is, but connected with her, became married to her. I think we've got some connected with her at the age of around 15 or 16. So they began a family.
We don't need numbers I have for test.
Now what's happening is we've got some interference coming from the station. So Mason, if you're in the station, I'm hearing you, or either Kelvin, I'm hearing you. So you have to mute Kelvin. There we go. Okay, so that's part of this whole transition of how these families work. And speaking of, so the mother I'm talking about, who sent Martha to be married to Alan Sykes, I met her when I was like 4 or 5 years old. My grandmother and her new husband, Sykes had died. She married another guy who was a railroad worker, would go down to Mississippi every couple of years on the railroad. He had passes, right? So I went down to Mississippi in the summertime. And I remember being 3 or 4 years old and walking from this shack that we lived in. What I remember about the shack is that if you looked up, you could see the sky because the roof had holes in it. And if you looked down, you could see geese and ducks walking under the house. The house had slats for a floor, and there's a 1-inch space between each of the slats, right, or these boards. So geese could stick their heads up between the slats and bite your feet if you were a kid like me. But they told us how to manage that. That was a condition, and that probably was okay at the time. Once great-grandmother and I were in a shed with, and I reached my hand into a barrel that had this fluffy cotton candy looking cotton coming out of it, and I was excited about it. And she whacked me on the hand with a spoon or something, saying, get your hand out of there because you don't know if there's a snake inside that barrel or not. So I remember this woman who I think loved me, chastising me, training me. And there's a photograph of her on my mantle at home when she came to Kansas City, where she lived with us until she died, right? And I didn't realize this until I went to see the movie 12 Years a Slave. I came back home and saw this picture where I'm 4 years old or 5, and my first cousins from the Sykes family are all sitting on the floor. And then my mom is on the couch, her sister who lived there, and her husband on the couch. My mom's mom, Martha, called her Big Mom, was on the couch, and Big Mama had her arm around her mother, Lizzie, right? So I looked at this and I said, by God, my God, I didn't know. I did the math. Lizzie was born a slave.
Yes.
So that's how close, how near slavery is to us. And I say this because I have white people will say to me, you all need to get over slavery. I'm not getting over nothing. It's personal. And it's that close. So
my family is really young. Our family is really young. So like I've been able to see my great grandmother, right? Was actually born on a plantation. Beatrice Jones. So it is very close.
Yes.
And then we're raised primarily by our great grandmother. Right. So just being able to be in 4 to 5 generations of your family
Yes.
one time, and knowing that one of them was born on the plantation. So
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
very
Close, isn't it? Yeah.
yes.
Well, listen, this has been a wonderful conversation as always. So glad to have both of you on the call. And Sharon, I'm going to ask you to, as often as you can, be with me, because I think you bring a wonderful and beautiful voice, perspective, and analysis. And I want to reach out to other relatives of ours in Jamaica.
Yes.
Reached out to some publishers who own and represent the African press in Minnesota.
Connection. Oh, I can't be a regular part of the international conversation.
Oh,
no,
you are. you know you part of this from the get, Kenya. You know that. But my vision here, just so you guys know, is that I want to use this program on KFAI to connect with Black people in Sudan, in Ghana, in Jamaica, in Venezuela, in South Florida, in London, even in Australia, because we are all over the planet and we are connected. And I think that we all are feeling, as Sharon said, exactly the same experience. And the experience is a product of this white supremacist thought that has brought oppression on the world and on humanity. But all of us in the world are resisting. And I believe that all of us have an obligation and a duty, a responsibility to create change, to create a narrative in which we win. And winning for us is not winning for them. Their winning means we must lose. Our winning doesn't mean they have to lose. When we win, everybody can win. And that's a question of the vision and the power of our thought, our identity, and who we are and who we believe human beings can be in the world today. So that's enough preaching from Alan Mcfarlane. Kenya, thank you for being here. Cousin Sharon, thank you for being here. I'll give you both the final word. You got about 2 minutes. Sharon, what do you want your diasporian relatives in the West to be focused on in the next several days and months?
What about us? No, I think just to connect again. I think this is a very interesting time in the world. I think it's good to be connected, because I think it's been a difficult time. It's going to get more difficult. I think as resources become more fractured. In England, we're going through a very difficult time. We have a baby Trump prime minister who's a very dangerous man. We're going through some really bad times here. So it's good to connect with other people. One thing I wanted just to add, that I've got a very close friend, and her sister, who's raised here, they originally come from Sierra Leone, and she's leaving Britain to go to live in Gambia. So she's leaving in the next couple of days. So I think I might try and contact her to see when she's established there, whether we could hook up. She's an IT person, so I'm sure she could. So I think, again, like you, it's nice to have those connections abroad. I've also got a Caribbean friend who lives in St. Lucia in Martinique. It'd be nice to get someone from there. Maybe you could join us one day. But it's just nice to touch base with family. And I mean, not just us Mcfarlanes and people related to you and through you, but other people of the diaspora. I think it's really fantastic.
Ken, we've got about a minute. I want to acknowledge that it's kind of late. My friend, Muhammad Kali, is on the call, but Muhammad, let's get you in next week. Muhammad Kali is the founder and editor of KALY FM radio. KALY is based in South Minneapolis. It's the first and I think the only 24-hour Somali language radio station in the country. It's an innovation and it's a powerful resource. And he's doing a great job. But Kenya, I'm going to close with you. What do you want our community in the world to focus on in the next short term?
Yeah, just let's remember our ancestors and just continue to do our part. And as the pressure is felt here, is felt across the diaspora in the world, and what is going to help keep pulling us through, because we are leaders in the new era that we're seeing, and they ain't going out without a fight. And the best fight that we have is our spirituality, our spirit, our ancestors, and these are the things that we have to reconnect to and stand firm in as part of our base, and continue to build our agenda. I think it is upon us to think about and to plan and act in our future, not our reality now, but in the future, because our ancestors were futuristic leaders. And so had they not thought about us, we wouldn't be here today. And they endured everything they did, knowing and hoping and praying and working towards a better day for us, which we still in pain, but it's definitely not what they endured. So it is upon us to take that same step and continue to press forward, but stand firm and root in our culture, our history, and our spiritual powers that we're gifted with naturally.
Lady J, if you give me another 1 minute, I just want to hear the voice of Brother Muhammad Kali. Muhammad, you got 30 seconds, but you're going to come back next week, hopefully, and be part of this conversation, because I'm going to use the Tuesday program to create this international connection. Give me 30 seconds, if you would. Actually explain what KALY is.
Thank you all, and thank you everybody. I'm listening, and I hope we'll see you again. Just KALY is the first FM radio, as you said early. This is not only radio. We don't call radio, we call saving life. When our people communicate and connected, they can do whatever they want. Because in this earth today, as you see the camera, how they change this world, the radio and the camera, we can bring who we are. We can, everyone elected official, they can be accountable what they do, their record. So this is not only radio, this is saving life, connecting our community, and living the best life a human being can live. We want an equal life for all of us. That's what we're fighting, and that's what we stand for. And all of us, if we stand together, we can make a difference.
Thank you so much. I think that's it. Well, listen, it's been a great program. I'm Al Mcfarlane, and we'll see you next time. Lady J, thank you for giving us the extra